It's all about humanity.
And we are live. Good evening, everyone. It is Brian, the UK Bitcoin Master, back as always every Monday and every Thursday live with my UK Bitcoin Master live show. Today is the 3rd of March 2022. As always, strong Bitcoin hand. Get past the price and look at the fundamentals. Then you will never sell your Bitcoin. Great to have you all in the house. Just for anybody new finding the channel, check out the disclaimer down here. No financial advice here. No price predictions. No charts. No technical analysis. Just this crazy Brit who wants to go live a couple of times a week and try and inspire people to get down the Bitcoin rabbit hole themselves. So do read that disclaimer and for goodness sake, do your own research. Check out my work. I think this is video 404, UKBitcoinMaster.com. You'll find them all there, and at BitcoinInterviews.com, clearly, where you'll find all the interviews, including this one, once it is done. That said, very quickly a shout out. We've got Phoenix in the house. My lovely wife is in the house. Elaine, Mrs. UK. Patriot Hodder, welcome to you. P. Hill has just joined us. Yorkie Bitcoiners with us. Proud Zionist Jew, a.k.a. Adam Meister, makes his apologies, but he's on his way to Las Vegas. So whilst he pounded and retweeted, he's actually not going to be in the show live. So welcome, everyone. Great. Johnny Midas has just joined us. Good to see you in the house. Okay, without further ado, people, I've got a live guest. This guy's really busy, so we're going to get right into this. Before we do, what I want to do is quickly tell you a little bit about this guest, if I may. So, I'm going to bring on Yan Pritzker. Now, Yan is the co-founder of Swan Bitcoin. If you are in the US, you should be checking out and using Swan Bitcoin. Yan co-founded Swan Bitcoin. He also was the ex-CTO at Reverb.com. I've been on and had a look, and Yan, you'll tell me in a moment if I got that wrong, but it looks like if you're looking for any type of musical instrument, you're going to find it there online. I believe it's the largest online musical instrument supplier, finder, whatever it is, in the world. So marketplace, fair play, well done. Now, people, Yan is also the author of this book, Inventing Bitcoin. Now, this is a couple of hour read. I listen as opposed to read, so on Audible I listened on 1.25x, and in a couple of hours or so you can read this book. And if you want to get into the Bitcoin rabbit hole and learn about why Bitcoin, then I would encourage you to get your hands on this book. So that said, without further ado, allow me to welcome to the show Yan Pritzker. Yan, great to have you in the house.
Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Wow, fantastic. I know you're really, really busy. So let me just explain, because we didn't have a chance to have a quick chat beforehand. I'm a UK Bitcoiner that doesn't understand finance, doesn't understand a lot of the technicals of what they all talk about when you get on some of the Swan shows and, you know, some of the Jeff Booth shows and Preston Pish shows. I had Preston on last week, which was an awesome show, actually. And, you know, he sort of kept it down to a level that we could have a decent conversation around. So I guess what I want to do, Yan, is find out a little bit about, this is for my audience, by the way, find out a little bit about who you are, how you found Bitcoin, your rabbit hole, what made you write the book, where we're at with everything that's going on in the world right now, and then I guess ultimately how you see the future of Bitcoin and the world playing out. So for my audience, Yan, if you wouldn't mind, a little bit of background on yourself would be really useful.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do so. So my name is Yan, and I'm a technologist at heart. I've been doing tech startups for about 20 years now. I came from the former Soviet Union, actually. So what's happening in the world right now is very close to home. I did actually come from Kiev, which is in Ukraine, and the capital of Ukraine, and is currently under siege. I don't have any family there anymore, so that's good at least. But one of the interesting things for me was, so my Bitcoin story basically was, I had no idea about what Bitcoin was. In 2011, I first heard about it on Slashdot, and Slashdot's this kind of nerdy news site, just a bunch of tech news. they tend to be actually weirdly anti-Bitcoin these days, but who the hell knows? But anyway, they talked about Bitcoin as this kind of like open source payment network thing. I didn't understand it. I actually ended up buying some at like $30, and then it went down to $2. And of
As
course
most people do.
Yeah, I was
Buy
like,
the
this
top
is a
and watch it
scam.
crash.
Yeah, I bought the top, bought the $30 top, watched it crash to $2, and I was like, okay, I got scammed. I think I had like $1,000 worth. So basically, I had, my investment was erased. For whatever reason, I did not keep that investment. I was just like so angry. I sold the bottom. Bought the top, sold the bottom. Everybody's first Bitcoin cycle tends to look like that. I did it again in 2013. By the way, I never understood what it was. It just didn't bother. I've been working on startups. I was very busy, and I didn't have time to look into it. And then I touched it again in 2013. Coinbase had been on the market. It looked a lot better. Like the user experience of buying Bitcoin in 2011 was ridiculous. It was Mt. Gox. It was a horrible UI. It looked,
I would
like
imagine
designed by
so.
amateurs. You were sending money to God knows where. It just, it was not, it didn't look like it was a thing. In 2013, it looked a lot more like it had become a legitimate thing. There was an app. It looked good. I bought some Bitcoin on Coinbase. Again, at the top, of course, because that's when you typically enter into Bitcoin cycles at the top. That's what most people do, right? Because they hear about it in the news and they're like, well, maybe this is a thing now.
Yeah.
So bought the top that time around like $1,000. And again, it went down to like 300. And I was like, what? Every time I buy the top. And then I just watched the investment just die. And
so can I say for my audience, so listen to what Jan's saying, people, because, whether it's 1,000 to 300 or whether it's 60,000 to 20,000 or 30,000, the percentages are the same. It's just that Bitcoin's growing, it's getting adoption, the numbers going up, but the percentage crashes are the same, aren't they? But I guess when you're dealing with tens of thousands,
like my first investment from 30 to 2, I mean, I don't know what percentage it is. It's like, 90% down. It was just dead, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't think it is ever going to recover. And Bitcoin has had many of these corrections over the years. And if it's your first time living through one, it's definitely devastating. You feel like you've been had. You feel like you bought into a scam of some type. And that's a very easy feeling to have if you don't understand what it is, right? So it actually wasn't until 2016 where I actually sat down and started researching what it was. And frankly, what did it for me was this Andreas video. Andreas Antonopoulos was and remains. He's a very good Bitcoin evangelist. These days, he's kind of gone down some interesting paths with some other blockchains, which I don't agree with. But he's very good at understanding, or was good at understanding Bitcoin and was good at explaining it. And in 2016, he put out a video called Currency Wars, which to this day, I highly recommend to people as a starting point, because he was talking about what was going on in the world. And at that time, it was Greece and Cyprus going through their financial crises, and people basically being locked out of, banking, being unable to withdraw money from ATMs, capital controls, hyperinflation. All of that was happening like 2013 to 2016. And that was a time period when he was making these videos and explaining it. So for the first time, when I saw that video, I understood that Bitcoin was not a payment system. It wasn't like some new alternative to Visa or PayPal. What it was a new form of money that had a very different characteristic than all other money that we had known before. And importantly, the difference was it wasn't under the control of the government. And to some people, that's like, oh my God, what is it backed by? It's backed by nothing. Well, as it turns out, it's government currency that's actually backed by nothing. Bitcoin is backed by physics. And not only is government currency backed by nothing, it's also extremely controlled by the government. So if they want to just tell you, hey, you can't get your money out of the bank today, they just flip a switch and that happens. And that was happening in 2016, and it's happening today. It's happening today in Russia and Ukraine. They're shutting down their banking systems. People can't get their money out, and people are learning again over and over that the money in their bank is not their money. It is the government's money. They have no access to that wealth. So what does that mean if you need to leave your country in a hurry? It means you're screwed. It means you're leaving with nothing. So that happened to us, right? So basically, after watching that video, I was like, okay, big brain melting moment. Bitcoin is the first time we have portable, unconfiscatable, unseizable money that cannot be debased. It's an absolute game changer in how people think about wealth and value and transacting with each other. And let's be clear, it's not just about like getting rich. It's the ability to transact with another human being is a fundamental part of what makes us free. If we can't exchange value with other people in a free way, then we have no freedom. If we can't leave our country and maintain the wealth that we have saved up from all the hard work that we've done over the years, then we have no freedom. We can't leave that country. So,
it appears like we're just giving our freedoms up little bit by little bit without even thinking what we're doing. Do you know what I mean? That to me seems to like we're accelerating towards giving them everything. And this CBDC situation frightens me to death. But anyway, carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, and we can talk about that too. I mean, for sure, the digitization of how we think about money has been going on for a long time. I mean, at this point, how many people even carry cash? Like, I don't know the last time I carried cash. Coins are gone. Coins don't even exist anymore. Paper money is on its way out. Most transactions we do are digital, right? So we're basically voluntarily entering into this world where money it's going to be digital. I don't think there's any, question about that. Now, the only question is what kind of digital will it look like? Is it going to be like corporate money by Facebook? Is it going to be central bank money, which is what you just touched on, CBDCs? Or will we have money that we actually truly control ourselves, that is not in the control of other people, governments, whatever, which is Bitcoin? So for me, that connection came when I saw that video. And then I basically was thinking about what happened when my family left the Soviet Union in 1989. And I asked my parents what happened to our money, because I know that we came into America pretty poor, and we had to start from scratch. But I didn't really know why.
When was this, Yan? How long ago was this?
This was in like 2017, I would say. So like
when you went to America?
Oh, no. I came to America in 1989. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Like, when I started asking this. Yes.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. No. No, I grew up here. I was 7 years old when it came.
Gotcha.
So 1989, my parents and my family, we moved here, and we were refugees. We were Jewish, so we are Jewish. We had Jewish refugee status, which is the only real reason we were even let out in the first place, because it was basically impossible to get out of the Soviet Union. But there was a deal made between America and Soviet Union that allowed people of Jewish heritage to be pulled out, and that's how we got out. But when we were getting out, I asked my parents basically what happened to our money, and they said, well, there was a government exchange rate, which was something like just high level. It was like $1 per ruble. It was maybe a bit more than that. But on the street, the ruble was worth 5 cents. So it was just like garbage, right? So basically, when we left, the government had capital controls, which means they controlled how much capital you can take out of the country. And what they said was, if you want to exchange your rubles at our exchange rate, you can get $100 per person. So we left the country with $400 because we had 4 people in our family. That's what capital controls means. And that's what's happening now, again, in the same exact place, Russia, which is not really the Soviet Union, but, arguably is trying to rebuild the same idea. You have the same thing. People can't get out with their money. So it's happening in Ukraine too, by the way. It's not just, it's not just a Russia thing. It's
interesting
in any country that's a strife and has currency problems, right?
It's interesting you say that, because I was listening to Natalie Brunel chatting on a podcast the other day, and she was saying that her family fled from Poland to the US because the US was free. And she said, all of a sudden, here's my parents now saying, I think we'll go back to Poland. It's freer than the US. So, it's all going to pot, isn't it? I mean, I don't understand why people can't see what's happening. Now, I believe that more and more people are saying something is wrong. We don't quite know what it is, but something is wrong. But I don't know. I just don't get this. Let's just willy-nilly give our freedoms away. And, we can talk about CBDCs and how flipping scary they are if you start to understand what they actually mean. Do you know what I mean? So your thoughts on CBDCs? We mentioned them earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. So CBDCs, again, is basically central banks coming out and saying, well, why do we need all these individual banks around doing all this intermediation? We can just issue the currency straight to the consumer, but it's digital, and it's going to use all kinds of fancy technology to control how the money actually works. So, for example, right now during the COVID crisis and all that, they wanted to create more money, essentially, right? They wanted to stimulate the economy. So they printed some money, they drove the interest rates down to make loans more accessible, and basically caused the creation of a ton of money, right? We went from like 4 trillion in base money to like 20 trillion. So gigantic explosion in our monetary supply. So that is one way of doing it, but there's a much easier way. Like if you just had a CBDC, which would be essentially a coin given to you by the central bank, they could just go into their computer and say, okay, well, we're going to just reprogram this coin so that if you don't spend it today, it's just going to lose 5% of its value every month, let's say. And they can basically create artificial controls over that. Or they can say, you know what, we need to stimulate, our I don't know, auto sector. So you can only spend this, we're going to give you this like income, free money, whatever, but you can only spend it on cars, or you can only spend it on wheat or whatever, right? It's kind of a dream for central planners, because this was the thing in the Soviet Union, right? That's how the Soviet Union was run, is basically the government controlled the means of production, which means they decided how money would be spent. They decided how resources were allocated, and they did a lot of that through price controls. So they would say, this bread costs, let's just say $1, and a pair of jeans costs, let's say $500, right? And an apartment is free, but you have to wait for it for 20 years. So like those are the kinds of things that were going on in the Soviet Union. And of course, what do you think happens to an economy where there's no freedom of information? Basically, prices are freedom of information between different actors in the economy. The economy is incredibly complicated. So once you start fixing prices and saying this caused this and this caused that, you've just destroyed the ability for these people to communicate. And so, of course, you get shortages of one thing, oversupply of another thing. Basic needs in the economy are not met. People have to stand in line for bread. That's basically what happens when you have the central control. So CBDCs are like the dream of these central planners, right? Because now they don't have to do all this complicated stuff. All they have to do is like issue these coins and program them to say what you can spend them on, how much value do they lose. They can have like a computer orchestrating this whole thing. And this is incredibly scary because it takes away the freedom of everyday people to do what they want with their money. First of all, it's really important. Second of all, despite these insane dreams of people, this kind of system just doesn't work. It's impossible to have central control over something as complicated as an economy. You need to have people making individual choices and individual decisions. Supply and demand needs to work. Prices need to be set.
Free market.
Interacting.
Yeah.
Yes. Otherwise, it's all going to break down, and you have a complete breakdown of society when you can't buy. Like you go to the grocery store, and the price, from the morning to the evening, it changes dramatically. And then this is happening in places with hyperinflation.
Venezuela,
and not just, right. It happens. Venezuela is an extreme example, but it's happening in dozens of countries all over the world right now. So it's a bad situation, and this is not like this is not like a conspiracy theory. I mean, you can go to any of these central bank websites and read their papers. Actually, a team member of ours, Sam Callahan, a really awesome researcher on the Swan team, he's done a ton of research into international banking and all the stuff that they're putting out. And it's literally like in every research paper. This is the reason we want to do CBDCs. We want to have complete surveillance. We want to make sure the money's being used the right way. We want to have these levers so that we can make it worth less or more, however we want to do. Like they're just spelling it out. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's not crazy tinfoil hat stuff. It's research papers coming out of central banks.
But people think it's conspiracy, don't they? I even talk to family members, and I've got really, really close family members that say, but how do you know this stuff? What are we supposed to believe? And I always struggle with that one. I'm now going to say, okay, so there's some papers written. You need to go and read these papers, because the pushback I'm getting constantly. Listen, I'm a working class guy. I drove trucks for a living for 20 odd years. So I relate to the Canadian truckers and everything that they were going through. So the people that I surround myself now are Bitcoiners for sure. But the people that I surround myself with in life are working class people that don't understand finance and banking and Federal Reserve. Oh, look, when I first got into this thing, I didn't even know what the Federal Reserve was. I heard it mentioned on the news. I had to do some research, and the thing that helped me was the creature from Jekyll Island. I mean, whilst a lot of it went over my head, it was so impactful for me. And I say this to anybody watching this right now, even if you're not well educated, and I'm not, get your head into or read that creature from Jekyll Island. And if you take just 10% away, i.e. the corruption of money throughout history, you'll see where we are right now. And for me, these CBDCs, the reason they frighten me from a regular dude point of view is I just hear the podcasters that know their stuff saying, look, have a look at how they control their populations in China. You know, that is really, really scary. People that are told they can't go somewhere because they maybe put something on social media that the government didn't like. Right, that's it. We're going to freeze your bank account. They can switch you off. And it's like, why are people letting that just gallop towards them? I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, people are walking into a blind, and it's not just working class people or uneducated people or whatever. It's everybody, because, you know, especially in America and the UK as well, because we're basically two of the world's, you know, non-broken monetary systems, right? Like
supposedly
our money works. Supposedly, yeah. But I mean, frankly, compare what's happening here versus like Argentina or Venezuela or Russia.
Oh yeah,
our money is by far, like, it works, right? Like most people don't think about it because it works. And yes, we have a bit of inflation now. And it seems like, you know, the people are saying it's transitory, so it's probably okay. But, you know, whether or not that plays out is a big question for me, because just on the face of it, like, the amount of money in the system has, you know, 10x almost. It will be 10x soon, I'm sure. It's kind of insane, right? So actually, I mean, if you talk about from pre-2008, we had like a trillion. 2000 from before 2008 to after the global financial crisis, the supply of money in the US, the M1, which is basically money sitting in people's bank accounts, stuff like that, it went from $1 trillion to $4 trillion, now to 20 trillion. Yeah. So at which point does it go to 100 trillion? Like within the next 10 years, for sure, for me.
But Yan, am I right? Am I right in saying that the reason this is breaking or broken, whichever, is that when inflation happens and they introduce more money, that then has got to be offset against the growth in the economy. But what they've done, they've dropped this helicopter money, which means that is not linked to the growth of the economy. So therefore, and I don't fully understand this, I'm trying to understand it, but they can't raise interest rates because that will crash the economy, which inflation will continue to rage. I mean, maybe you can explain it a little bit to my audience.
I mean, this is, again, I'm not an economist, so I'm going to preface that with my understanding is also relatively rudimentary. But if you look at it on a very basic level, right? Supply and demand is all you need to understand, right? Like there's, let's say, there's one car in the whole country and there's $100 across the population, right? So like if that was the only good in the economy that was available, then all of the wealth is $100. So that car is worth $100. If somebody wanted to fight over it, like at the end of the day, all the money in the world would be $100 and that would be it, right? Yeah. But at some point, now you drop another 100 in the economy. Now there's still only one car, but now there's $200 in the economy, right? So now that will raise the price of that car. I mean, it's really that simple. The more quantity of money you have, the less each piece is worth. So when you have stuff happening like, like during the coronavirus, and they basically say, okay, well, we're going to create a $3 trillion stimulus package. What they're hoping for is that they're going to give $3 trillion to people, and then those people will go out and spend it, and that somehow that will create more goods in the
velocity.
World. Now the car manufacturers will start making more cars because people want more cars. But of course, people don't want more cars. They just want their everyday stuff, right? Which they've always wanted. There's not like really any extra demand. So all they've done is they basically created artificial demand. What actually happens in real life, when you look at it, is that the people who already have money, when they get these helicopter money, and the helicopter could be, they gave them a stimulus check, which was mostly not for rich people, it was mostly for sort of working class people. But even on the rich side, they gave them loans, right? So on the rich side, if you're an asset owner, you go and get a loan for 0%. What do you do with that money? you put it in the stock market. That's what people are doing. They put it into Bitcoin. They put it into real estate. They put it into hard assets that are actually scarce. So all the rich people went out, got $20 trillion worth of loans, basically, stuck it into the stock market, real estate, Bitcoin, gold, everything else. Everything went up, right? And then it's like, wow, everything's up a lot, but still somehow our economy sucks. Like, what? There's some disconnect here. Why is all the stock market at all-time highs, and yet people are like not making ends meet? And that's the reason, right? Because they artificially messed with the economy by creating new money. And that money was not evenly distributed, because the people at the bottom got a $1,200 check, and the people at the top took out a loan for $10 million and bought $10 million worth of,
and got richer
stock, and got richer. So like, that's how it works when the government distributes money, is that it's not possible to distribute it evenly. There's no possible way to do that. So, you get this crazy wealth inequality effect. You get more strife in the society. You have more people not making ends meet, because now there's inflation. So if you're living paycheck to paycheck, and your gas went up from $3 to $5, or your milk went up from $3 to $6, you're screwed.
Yeah, we've got fuel prices going through the roof here.
Their assets went up. Yeah. So like, that's what it comes down to. And unfortunately, it's like, if you're in government, right, then you're essentially elected by people to do something. You have to do something. If you just sit on your ass, that also looks like you're doing nothing. You have a nice little button that says print money. You press that button a few times, things happen, and you've done something. But have you actually achieved the the necessary result? Potentially no, right? I mean, the data shows no. The data shows that when you do that kind of stuff, you're just grossly distorting the economy, leading to more bubbles, leading to more wealth inequality, and leading ultimately to societal collapse, because people can't live like this.
You're putting a Band-Aid over a war wound, aren't you? It's like...
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if it's it's like a Band-Aid that's like infected with some kind of, I don't know, some toxic bacteria. So it looks like it works for a second, and all of a sudden you've got like, a systemic failure in your whole body because you put this Band-Aid on. That's probably what I would actually say.
So we've had a whole bunch of doom and gloom kicking off about the economy and the world, etc. So enter Bitcoin. So you discover Bitcoin. You ended out writing a book. You ended out moving away from, I forgot the name of it now, Reverb. I don't know how you walked away, sold it, whatever you did, and then you started Swan Bitcoin. So here we are in 2022. How do you see Bitcoin helping the world, I get it, and a lot of my audience get it, but of course there's new people that are Googling Bitcoin for beginners or Bitcoin, and they're going to find my show. So for those people that may be finding the show, or for those people that, like my nephew who's in the chat, who's been chatting to me for 3 months, he's stacking everything he can now. He had loads of calls from flipping managers wanting to invest his money or lose it for him, and he resisted it and told them to go away in British language. And then I gave him a call and he jumped in the rabbit hole. But of course, I mean, he's starting to get it. But talk to those people that, are just embarking on getting into Bitcoin, and why they should stack, and why Bitcoin is different to central bank digital currencies, and why we're all so passionate about it. Yan.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, Bitcoin is our first money that is completely outside of the control of the government. And I think that is something fundamentally that you will understand over time as you learn more about Bitcoin. But more importantly, the question I think people need to ask is like, how do I protect my wealth in this new regime where A, prices are going up, B, there's a lot more central control. We're seeing things like China with their social credit system and cutting people out of the banking system. Then we have places like Russia. And if you live in the UK or the US, you might think, okay, won't happen here, can't happen here. Our money is fine, my bank is fine, I can rely on that money being there tomorrow. But how confident are you really, first of all? And if you are confident, even if you're confident that your bank's not going to be insolvent tomorrow, or that the government's not just going to freeze your assets for some reason, you should at least be thinking about the inflationary effects of what's happening in the world, because governments are printing money like crazy. We are entering into, it's kind of like an addiction, right? Where if you start doing this and then, you're voted into office on the promises of monetary stimulus of some type, canceling student debt, erasing whatever, debt you have, easing your burdens, giving you stimulus checks. These are things that people get elected on, and then they do them. And then what do you think happens? Of course, people love that. Like, I got a stimulus check. I want more. Give me $1,200. That's not enough. I want $5,000.
Bread and circus.
You create you create a perpetual cycle, right? Where people now want those kinds of leaders that will, do that for them. And so that it will cause inflation. I mean, you're seeing it right now. Like, nobody has to tell you this. It's happening now. And this is important because if you're, a person who has not studied the monetary system, you don't need to understand the finer points of how the banking system works. All you need to know is that every week, whatever month, you go to the grocery store, you're paying more for your groceries. Yeah, that should be a warning flag, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And one way that you can protect yourself and protect your purchasing power is to convert some of your money into Bitcoin, dollars, pounds, sterling, whatever your currency is. All currencies pretty much are convertible to Bitcoin. There's Bitcoin exchanges in every country. It's extremely liquid, which means liquid just means easy to exchange, easy to trade. You can buy any amount. You can buy $1 worth. You can buy $10 million worth. You can buy whatever you need, right? The best way, in my opinion, Bitcoin it's like the internet. It's an innovation in money. Okay, the internet was an innovation in how we distribute information. Before the internet, you had to write a book. You had to have a TV show. You had to, only a small subset of humanity was able to distribute information. You had to have risen to those levels. After the internet, here we are. We're on a podcast, two random people talking about random things. There's anybody can do this, right? It doesn't require anything special. Anybody with a video camera can start a show. So what does that mean now for money, right? Is Bitcoin did the same thing for money. Anybody can access Bitcoin from any country, from anywhere, for any reason. This is a really, really big deal because before you might not have had a choice. Maybe you're in Argentina where you either have the Argentinian peso, which is devaluing by 20 or 30% a year or worse. I don't even know what their rates are now. Or you are allowed to buy dollars, but you can only get $200 per month with a 30% tax on top. That's the kind of thing that's going on over there, right? There's lots of countries where you have this kind of capital controls where you can only convert some amount to dollars. And dollars are kind of like, why do I keep saying dollars? Because dollars are really the only currency that matters in the world, honestly. Everybody wants them, right? They are the reserve currency, at least for now. Oil trade is measured in dollars, at least for now, for most part. And not, it's fading, right? So if your choices are your own local currency, which you see is losing value, you can't afford groceries anymore, or you can have dollars, but you can't really have access to them. Or all of a sudden you have Bitcoin. You have access to Bitcoin. Everybody can get Bitcoin. Even if it's completely outlawed in your country, you can get it on the street. There's there's peer-to-peer exchanges, right? So now all of a sudden there's this release valve for all the broken financial systems in the world where you can just go out, buy any amount of Bitcoin and do it on a regular basis. Convert your local money, which is basically like pre-internet, old school money, convert it into the future, plug into the internet, get onto the internet. Bitcoin is the internet of value. It's another like Andreas thing, right? Bitcoin is the new value network. If you're not plugged into Bitcoin, you're not going to be able to participate in monetary transactions in the future. Or you'll be just living in your little island in your own country with your own CBDCs and, completely at the mercy of your local government and basically pray that it doesn't go the way of Russia or Ukraine or Argentina, Venezuela, Iran, Turkey, Libya, Lebanon. I mean, you can pray, but that doesn't seem to me like a great solution. I think it's much better to act. And so getting some Bitcoin is important because it protects your purchasing power, and it's important because it gives you an option. It gives you a way out. And if you do end up in a situation where your country, is at war, your family's in danger, you need to leave, any of those kind of situations, it does sound like doom and gloom, but look at the world. I mean, that stuff happens, right? You might want to have a little bit of Bitcoin.
I think we should be open to the fact that it doesn't always necessarily need to be like it's been. We can have change. I would imagine in 1939, everybody was going about their daily business, not imagining for 1 minute that the world would go to war. I don't understand all this, geopolitical stuff but I understand enough to know that what's causing this a lot of the time is gas pipelines, oil, borders, money is the big one, but when I got into Bitcoin, it's really interesting. I got in 2017, May 2017, and everybody was saying, oh, that's too risky to hold a position in Bitcoin. That narrative in 2022, it's too risky not to have a hedge in Bitcoin with everything that's going on around the world. And, that's where we've come in 5 years. Excuse me. So what is this going to look like in another 5 years? And I'm saying to people, we are just so early in all of this. I don't understand the figures, the amount of wallets, but, I know that most people I talk to frown at Bitcoin, steer away if I mention it, almost put the cross up like I'm the devil because it's something that's dodgy for drug dealers and criminals. And that's where we're at right now. So if you, whoever you are watching this and thinking, should I, shouldn't I? Jan's right. Get off of zero. Do a little bit of research. Put a little bit of a hedge into Bitcoin in case. I heard it said on a pod I was watching this morning, and they were saying it is better to prepare for the worst and the worst doesn't happen than the worst happening and you're not prepared for it. And
that's right.
I don't know what Russia's going to do with Bitcoin, or whether they're going to go in, cahoots with China and do something. Now, I don't understand any of that. All I know is I just feel here that you need to get off of zero and do a bit of basic research. I really do. Read Jan's book. Read the Bitcoin Standard. Do something.
Yeah, I think investing in education, first and foremost, you can never go wrong. I mean, you can read my book. You can read the Bitcoin Standard, a great book by Saif Adinamoose. Yep. It's a bit longer. It's a bit more in depth if you want to understand economics and things like that. It's really good. My book's really about like the why and the how. Why was Bitcoin created and how does it work?
And I listened to it yesterday, and I would say to anybody, get it and listen to it. Seriously. I went through yesterday. Yeah, brilliant.
You're not going to lose, you'll lose 2 hours of your life listening to this thing, but you will understand Bitcoin. And at the very least, you can make an informed decision. But I even almost urge people to just go out and buy a little bit of Bitcoin, even if they're not going to research it, because that in and of itself might make them curious, having a little bit of skin in the game. And then seeing, okay, this is my regular government issued currency wallet, and here's what it can afford versus my Bitcoin wallet. One of them is growing in purchasing power, and one of them is dying.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
But it's for me, like, it's not all just doom and gloom. There is a positive side, and really why.
That's what I wanted to get to. That's what I wanted to get to.
I'm sorry, I went down the doom and gloom path all of a sudden.
No, it's fine.
Because the world
we sometimes need doom and gloom to wake us up. And I guess what I'm saying is, I personally believe that there's going to be a rocky road ahead, and I want to hear your side of this. I believe we've got a rocky road ahead. There's the old Gandhi saying, isn't there? First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. And I really do believe we are entering the they fight you stage, and all we have to do is understand that they can't control this. They can't control what you do with it. If you lose it in a boating accident, or you've got your keys in your head, your seed word in your head, and you get amnesia, it is what it is. You can hold your wealth and take your wealth anywhere. So let's start to talk about, from your point of view, Yan, the benefits of Bitcoin and how the world can play out with Bitcoin maybe as a standard. I don't know how that's going to play out.
I mean, it's anybody's guess at this point. There's just a lot of ambiguity about it. But we can look at existing trends and project them forward a bit, right? So I talked about this for a long time, is that there's a certain type of need for Bitcoin in certain places, and in certain places it's more of a luxury good. So in my opinion, for example, in the United States, Bitcoin for the most part is a luxury good. It's something where, okay, I could invest a little bit in Bitcoin, but if I don't, I'm probably going to be okay by and large. If you're in somewhere like Venezuela, it's like a real need. It's like, it's either I eat today, and because I have Bitcoin and because I'm protecting some of my savings, or I don't. So like that's the difference, right? So in some countries, and there's people that are in between, right? Argentina or Turkey or something, you're kind of somewhere in between where, hey, I kind of need Bitcoin because if I don't have it, my wealth is evaporating. So we're going to see that adoption of Bitcoin in countries that really need it first. And as a perfect example, Ukraine, right? Ukraine is at war, and they need to raise money. They've been kind of abandoned by a lot of their allies, and well, now they're helping. But in any case, what do? They go to Twitter and they're like, "Here's our Bitcoin address. If you want to donate, like send Bitcoin here, right? From anywhere in the world." All of a sudden, they have a need, and they can tap into the world's biggest monetary network, the biggest open, free, uncensorable monetary network, and they can ask people for donations. So
beautiful.
Very interesting, right? Like now, before as a country, you had to rely completely on your geopolitical alliances, like who's going to help me in a time of need. Now you could just like do a crowdfunding campaign with nothing but a Bitcoin address, which you can generate on your freaking phone in 1 second. It takes nothing to do this, right? How world changing is this? So let's think about it in lots of different use cases. So we have that where we have nation states doing it. Now we have companies doing it, right? We have like Michael Saylor, and he's a huge kind of face of the corporate community in terms of Bitcoin adoption. But they're
desperately trying to get him to come on my show as well.
Yeah, he's great, and he's very poetic with how he talks about Bitcoin. But we at Swan, we onboard a lot of companies. So we don't deal with $100 million companies, but we do deal with a lot of small family businesses. They're buying $100,000, $1 million worth of Bitcoin, and they're coming on board in droves. I mean, there are hundreds, thousands of these companies that are coming on board. Nobody's talking about this, right? They are coming on board. Why? Because they don't want to sit on dollars. They're afraid of dollars. They're losing value. They understand that they have to protect their wealth. They're worried about their kids. How are they going to pass on their wealth to their kids? Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin fixes that. Bitcoin makes it possible for people to maintain that wealth in the face of all this stuff that's happening in the world. You've got countries like El Salvador, right, who are basically were kind of at the bottom tier of countries that anybody cared about until they started talking about Bitcoin, because the IMF was like, oh, if you guys use Bitcoin, we're not going to give you $1 billion loan. They said, great, we don't care. We have Bitcoin. We can raise $1 billion. We can sell Bitcoin-backed bonds, right? So people are coming up with ways around the broken monetary system in this world, and that is leading to a renaissance in those countries. Some of the stories we've heard on the ground, for example, from El Salvador, is like people in small ways are building new things. They're building businesses. They're building some wealth. They're able to save that money. They're able to transact. They're able to attract foreign investment because now they have Bitcoin. They're able to attract tourism. They're creating some wealth for their country because they've embraced this. And so if you're like another country in that same situation and you see that El Salvador is doing well, then why wouldn't you also do that, right? So you start to have all of this
domino
game
effect
theory where, like one company adopts it, another one has to. One country adopts it, another one has to. And it might be kind of inverted because the ones that will adopt it are the ones that really, really need it. So by definition, they're going to be the ones that are like, either really low on the economic scale, or maybe they are rogue states from our perspective, like, in Iran or North Korea, where we don't want to, we don't like their leaders. But because we've pushed them out of the financial system, Russia is another example. We shut off their financial system. They have to do something. So they're going to start adapting Bitcoin. So that same narrative that we had in 2013 about Bitcoin being for criminals and all of that, and the Silk Road, which is one of the reasons Bitcoin was prominent in 2013 was the Silk Road and Bitcoin being used to buy drugs and all that stuff. Yeah, because that was a market that needed Bitcoin, right? They needed it more than anybody else because they needed freedom of transaction more than anybody else. But over time, Bitcoin became adopted by companies and states and regular people, right? We're seeing the same thing now with, like the countries that we don't like are adopting Bitcoin. So it's for bad countries only until it isn't, right? Until all the bad countries have the Bitcoin and they're transacting freely. And I think what that does is actually creates potentially a more peaceful world, because in my opinion, a lot of the strife in this world is because we have the United States is the world's gatekeeper on what can happen financially. We are literally telling you're good, you can trade, you can't trade, you guys we don't like, so we're just going to flip the switch off and have fun. Your entire economy is broken now because we have the switch. This is crazy. Like, I think Putin's an absolute madman, and that Russia's a dictatorship. I have people there who are friends of mine who have family there who tell me from the ground what's going on. It's an absolute nut house. It's not a free country by any stretch of the imagination. I don't want them to win. But look, part of the reason why, they're angry is because we have full control over their economy, because we just took them out of the SWIFT system and we just shut down their Apple Pay and Google Pay. We have complete sovereignty over Russia in reality. We have
But what
complete
about the
sovereignty over
oil they
every
could
country in the
stop?
world.
What about the oil they could put, a stop on, which then causes another issue for the US? I don't understand this. I've just been on so many pods recently and I've heard them talking about this, but they could just cut the oil off to the US.
I mean, they have their own weapons, right? A lot of the country, basically, we have the world's biggest financial weapon. We can control the world economy that way. Everybody else has the resource weapons, right? So, we'll stop shipping you gas or stop shipping you wheat or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So we're just creating this terrible system, and it's in part because we have the central control. Doesn't matter how good we think the United States is, how benevolent. Personally, I don't think it's as benevolent as they make it sound, but the United States is a better actor than Russia, in my opinion, as far as freedom and democracy and all that stuff. Nonetheless, we shouldn't have the ability to turn off an entire country from the financial system. This is insane. We're hurting real people, right? Real people on the ground who are now screwed because of what we can do to them. And perhaps if we didn't have that switch, maybe there wouldn't be so much fighting over things.
Well, I just feel, based on what you were saying about El Salvador, I feel that these smaller countries that, as you rightly said, need it, ultimately as we go forward, that's going to come full circle, and they could well be the superpowers of the world because of the finance they hold over time as Bitcoin gets adopted, etc. So, I mean, if you sort of take a macro view of this, I always say, if you've got some vision, if you can imagine how this could play out over maybe a few decades, I could well see the El Salvadors of the world being the superpowers of the world purely because of how early they got in. And then all of a sudden you have to hit a tipping point where so many more countries are starting to come in that the game theory plays out, and these bigger countries think, we've got to get into this, because if we don't get into this, we are going to lose out big time. And I just wonder whether any conversations like that are going on currently because of the Russia-Ukraine situation and the hearsay that Russia would go and adopt Bitcoin or whatever, all the chat that's out there. I just wonder if there's these types of conversations going on right now, even if it's just conversations. What are your thoughts?
I think absolutely they're going on. I mean, people are not stupid by and large. I mean, governments are stupid as far as governments go, but people inside of governments are not stupid. There are people that are smart and that understand things. And look, I just heard the news that Lugano in Switzerland is going to be accepting, crypto taxes, Bitcoin tax. So, these things are happening. El Salvador, Brazil is talking about it. I mean, you got tons of countries talking about it publicly, probably dozens more talking about it privately. How can you not? Like you said, if you're seeing El Salvador is successful, I don't know about superpowers. I think there's more than just money that comes into it, right? You need to have a large military, you need to have resources, and you need to be a powerful partner.
Fair point.
In trade, right? But between El Salvador and the next small country in Latin America, El Salvador is going to win by a mile, right? Because they're here already and they're already establishing their position, while the other countries are asleep at the wheel. So I think within those within cohorts of similar countries, I would say these countries that are first to adopt Bitcoin are going to be leaders. It is quite possible, and I really believe America will be next to last to this party because we have the most to lose from the dollar going away. And, and we also,
I think so too.
Like I said, our money is not really broken until it is, right? Like everybody else's money will break first. Ours will be the last to fall. And that's why we need Bitcoin the least. But in my opinion, if we want to maintain leadership status in this world, that is something we need to be looking at very, very seriously, because you're right. Like if China and Russia are the ones that are, between us, China and Russia, like I would much rather have us be the first ones with the Bitcoin and the position in the world to be leaders than them, because we are in the same cohort. And frankly, that's going to matter.
I think something is going on because of the amount of gold that Russia have been stacking. They've been absolutely piling their gold stocks. So there's obviously something going on. Well, we know there's something going on, but, they wouldn't be just stacking it as hard as they are for no reason at all. I mean, I heard it mentioned recently, and this is only hearsay, listening to different podcasters with different views. And they were saying that, Putin's already said to the chap in China, you better stick with me. You better stay locked with me, because if I go down, you'll be the next. I don't know how true that is, but this is what they're all saying. So Bitcoin, we've got Bitcoin now. Bitcoin is 13 years old. I believe it's now too big to fail. I would love to get your take. There's a couple of things I want to cover before we pull it together, Jan, and I'm looking at my clock and it's 8 minutes to the hour. So, Bitcoin, in terms of Bitcoin versus crypto, in your point of view, how's Swan doing? I'm not in America, so we're very fortunate. We've got CoinCorner UK here that allows us to DCA as well. I don't think it's quite as sophisticated as what you guys have got out there in Swan, but it doesn't matter. It's evolving. So Bitcoin versus the rubbish coins, as I call them. How's Swan doing? Is that growing? It appears to be growing. The people that are coming on board with you.
Yes, absolutely. By the way, we can serve international customers. It's just that it has to be US dollar denominated wires right now. So we can't really do automatic pulls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that aside, so, Bitcoin versus other crypto. So Bitcoin is extremely unique. It came from a very special set of circumstances, not the least of which is that the founder of Bitcoin is not around anymore and was able to disappear while Bitcoin was relatively worthless. With all these other coins that are coming by, you basically have a team, you have a founding team, you have, pre-mines, which means that people have a large stake in the network before it's fairly distributed. And ultimately, none of that even really matters because Bitcoin's worth $1 trillion or close to it. So now you have all this value and you have, this convergence on a single monetary network. Network effects, yeah. And the network effects run extremely deep with Bitcoin. Yep. If you understand how money works, you don't even have to understand how money works. You just have to say, okay, like, would I rather have $1 or Venezuelan bolivar, right? Which one's going to be accepted by more people? Which one's going to hold its value better? That's what it comes down to. So if you're saying that tomorrow Bitcoin's going to be replaced by something else, you have to show how that something else is going to hold its value better than Bitcoin, how it's going to be more secure than Bitcoin, and how more people will accept it than Bitcoin. You're just not going to get there. It's $1 trillion worth of value. It's had 13 years to prove its security. And it continues to do so. And anybody who's coming up now trying to compete with it is, dead in the water. And yes, a lot of these cryptos, they pretend like they're not competitors, but they are. And look at how the markets function.
I was just going to say, I think that one of the narratives we hear all the time, but what about the next Bitcoin? What about if somebody else brings a coin out the same to compete with Bitcoin? I don't think they get that they're either going to have to go really, really fast and break lots of things and wreck people's money, or they're going to have to go slow and do it correctly, by which time they are never, ever in a million years going to ever catch Bitcoin. So they're the two scenarios, and none of them work.
It's literally, it's not a repeatable situation. Bitcoin created digital scarcity. It is the only digitally scarce thing. You can't just create scarcity again. It's already scarce, right? So you can create another coin. And basically, what if they create another Bitcoin? Well, it's not a what if. They've already done it about 20,000 times. By my count, that last time I looked at CoinMarketCap, there's like 20,000 other coins, and that doesn't count all the other shit coins and all the other shit chains that exist. There's hundreds of thousands of these things. They've tried and tried and tried for 13 years, and every time fundamentally the same problem happens. You cannot attract Bitcoiners to part with their Bitcoin. It doesn't make any sense. It is the scarcest, most secure asset, and it's going up in value. So how are you going to get people to part with that? It doesn't make any sense. And
look at the hash rate. Look at the hash rate of anything bar Bitcoin. Bitcoin's out there in the stratosphere in terms of its computing power. The nodes around the world that can be run on hardly any electricity at all. And hardly any data once you've downloaded the blockchain. My full node sits in the corner. I even forget it's there, apart from logging into my Umbrel. It just sits there, it purrs, and I'm doing my little bit to give me a bit more privacy and security and support the Bitcoin network. I can't see that happening with any other coin.
That's right. And, the other thing that Bitcoin is doing all over the world is it's not quite obvious for a lot of people, but it's solving a lot of problems in the energy markets too. It's coming up and soaking up all this extra demand or creating demand where there is no demand. So basically you have, like wind power in Texas where, there's not enough economic incentive to build it out. Well, now Bitcoin's coming in and creating that incentive. I talked to one guy at the Bitcoin conference who was from the Congo in Africa. And he actually built a solar power station down there to do Bitcoin mining and created the first power station for this village in the Congo. They had no power before, right? And gives them free power and he mines Bitcoin. So like this stuff is happening on the margins. You can't even tell that it's happening. Gas flaring is another situation where Bitcoin's coming into oil fields and capturing flared gas that would otherwise be like venting methane into the atmosphere and stuff like that. It's solving all these problems for all these industries. where none of these other shitcoins are doing that. Like nobody cares about them. They're a complete joke, and they're there for people to trade and to make some money or to lose most of their money. If you want to gamble, that's cool. That's totally, I get it. I mean, I did some of that, but Bitcoin is a world-changing innovation. It's a freedom money, and it's going to change how we interact with people in the world. It's going to make us society a better society. It's going to make the world a better place. That's why we work on Bitcoin.
Awesome. Well, I know just by this conversation that, we could go on for another couple of hours. We could go down the energy rabbit hole. We could go down all different rabbit holes. There's so much to learn in Bitcoin. The only thing I would say, and I've said this lots of times on my show, and that is, it just feels like it's given me 10 more years. You're just so excited. You're so, it is, who said it the other day? Preston Pish said it on my show. He said, this is once in a millennium event. People need to understand that, it is up there with the printing press and, all this type of stuff. And people are just, it's not just another fad that's come along. This is going to change the world. None of us have got a crystal ball. None of us know how that's going to play out. But, when you understand the basic principles, the basic fundamentals of what gives Bitcoin its uniqueness, in my opinion, Yan, it can't not be inevitable. It has to be inevitable. Yeah. So, we could just keep talking. I
agree.
Tell the audience about Swan. What's going on with Swan? How's it growing? How's it looking?
We've been growing quite a bit. I mean, Swan launched in just early 2020, right as the corona virus hit. And we actually launched primarily as a retail product. So we were working with people that were saving, $10 to $50 a week. And that it continues to be a big part of what we do. We also grew into supporting lots of high net worth accounts. So now we onboard people for long-term savings purposes, trusts for their children, IRAs for their retirement. We're working with employers now. We're releasing something called the Bitcoin Benefit Plan, which allows employers to basically give Bitcoin to people on a monthly basis as a bonus. And we've had a bunch of Bitcoin companies sign up for that, and that's going to be really exciting. We're also doing a product for financial advisors who want to buy Bitcoin for their clients. Really just looking at, lots and lots of ways to promote Bitcoin in the world. And we've got a mobile app coming very soon. It's going to be really awesome. It's going to have a wallet. It's going to be like your end-to-end Bitcoin solution. And we're also working with other wallets to integrate Bitcoin purchasing right into their interfaces, because we think that really ultimately we want to have people hold their own keys. We want them on their devices, offline. We want those things to be secure. And so we want to teach people from the very beginning how to do that correctly. And we're going to make it happen. In the next 5 years, people will be stacking straight from a hardware device and from Swan back to the hardware. It'll never, touch us. It'll be a platform. It'll be amazing. And we're super excited about that.
And I'm super excited because you've got some awesome YouTube videos as well. People, check out Swan Signal. I've had Brady on the show. I'd love to get Corey on the show. I have DM'd him, but my DMs probably fell in amongst tens of thousands of others. But, reach out to Corey and say he should come on my show, because I'd love to chat to Corey as well. Yan, let's just finish this up with anything you want to talk about, anything that you feel worth a mention, where people can go and find you. Obviously, I've got your Twitter. That will all be added to the show notes as soon as we finish the show. I'll go in and add your Twitter. It's got everything on there. You can go and check out the guitar thing, whatever it is. I used to be in a band as well, by the way. I just plugged that one too.
Oh, nice.
I was lead singer, would you believe?
Oh, nice.
Not anymore. I haven't done it for many, many decades, but I used to be a lead singer. That's my claim to fame.
That's cool. Yeah, I still play in a band with my friends just to mess around.
Do you? Well, I was okay at electric guitar, but then I got this wretched arthritis in my hands, so I can't hold the neck down anymore. I just can't do it. So it went a long, long time ago. But I love music. Listen to all types of music. So anything you want to talk to my audience about to pull the show together, please?
Just
advice,
get some
bit
Bitcoin.
of advice.
I don't care where you go for your Bitcoin, whether it's Swan or somewhere else. I think it is important. The book, by the way, my book, Inventing Bitcoin, you can get it for free. Go to swanbitcoin.com/free book. And we have it there. We also have it in lots of other languages. We'll be publishing those links soon, but it's actually in Russian as well, Spanish, French, German, Turkish is coming. So, that'll be exciting. And really my mission is to spread education. That's why I make the book free. I want people to understand Bitcoin. I want them to protect their savings, their family. I want them to have a way out of this insane world that we're moving towards. And I want them to build a better future. Ultimately, it's I'm here because I am an optimist. I'm not doom and gloom. I actually really believe that Bitcoin will make humanity better. It will create collaboration on a scale that we've never had. I mean, imagine what the internet did for collaboration. And now we have the internet, plus we have a way to freely transact with each other. I mean, that's amazing, right? I have employees of Swan, contractors, people all over the world. We pay them in Bitcoin, because how else? How else would we pay them, right? Sending a wire through 3 different countries with 3 days of waiting. I mean, you're kidding me? Bitcoin solves all those
absolutely.
Like, I experienced it firsthand, right? We have people at our company that were living on a Bitcoin standard. They live in countries where their money is no longer worthwhile. They use Bitcoin. I see this happening. I see this growing. I see that Bitcoin is solving problems for people. And if you don't see that, that just means you haven't stepped outside of your bubble and talked to people from all over the world who are using Bitcoin on a daily basis. I think that is something everybody should do. Go out on Twitter. It's a great international community. Look at what people are saying about Bitcoin from all over the world. Don't just look at the USA or the UK and say, oh, it's just for speculators. You have zero idea what you're talking about. If you say Bitcoin is for speculators, you have literally never talked to anybody outside of your country, and I'm sad for you. You need to go out there and talk to somebody else. It's easy now. We have the internet. So go and talk to people, understand how Bitcoin is solving their problems, and then get some Bitcoin for yourself. Really, really important.
And I can't think of a better way to pull the show together. Yan, if you can just bear with me for about 20 seconds or so, I've just got to go over and go to my desktop. I'm then going to end the show. And can I just take 30 seconds of your time once we're offline on the green room before I let you go? Is that okay? So people, I hope you've enjoyed that with Yan. I certainly have. I would encourage you all, if you like what you see on the show, to maybe drop a few sats at my lightning addresses there. CoinCorner.io, UKBitcoinMaster is a good one. Or you can use tipping.me. You know that I love quotes, so I must finish my show with a quote. I always cover quotes, and I love this one. Your life doesn't get better by chance, it gets better by choice. So you have the choice, people, to sit and watch your big screen TV and watch your soap operas and watch your Netflix, or you have the choice to get down the Bitcoin rabbit hole and do a little bit of learning, a little bit at your pace, and you, as Jan rightly said, you can very quickly pick up on the fundamentals of what makes Bitcoin unique. So please don't allow your life to get better by chance, because if you leave it to chance with everything that's going on in the world, you are going to get totally wrecked, people. You really are. I feel that through every fibre of my being. So don't leave it to chance. Make your life better by choice. That's what I would say to all of you. Okay, so thank you, Jan, for being on. I really appreciate it. I will be back on Monday, 6 p.m. UK time, with my regular UK Bitcoin Master show. We'll be pulling apart a video and talking about it, as I always do. And then, with a bit of luck, I'll have a guest for next week. Don't have one at the moment, so I'm working on that right now. But that is it from me right now, people. Don't forget to like this, share it, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Tweet it out, retweet it out. I'd really appreciate it, so we can get more eyeballs to find shows like this. That is it for me. I'm going to catch you on the other side, Jan. I'll leave you all with my social media links. People, thanks for tuning in. Have a great weekend. Catch you all on Monday.